And just like that, we're back. St. John Fisher University inside the dorms at Dorsey Hall. Ryan will be here right next to me in 2 days where we can get all comfy and bring you the post-game or post-practice report. But today, the first Bills practice of 2024 training camp is in the books. I have been absolutely filling up the insider text line with all my observations from today's practice. You're going to get all of that, most of that on the show today. But I really literally empty the notebook in the insider text line throughout the day for after each practice, things that we learn, thoughts on what we've learned and analysis. And it's a great time to become an insider. 716-528-6727 or join subtext.com/shout Buffalo Bills. Ryan, what's it like for you when you're not here at training camp and you're kind of following along on the insider text line?
Oh, it's excellent because I'm getting like detailed analysis on what was happening throughout the day. And listen, the 4th of July was a few weeks ago, but Matt, it sounds like there was some offensive fireworks today at St. John Fisher University.
Really?
Yeah.
We didn't even get through one show before you brought out the dad joke of the year.
Oh, yeah.
Great job.
Great
job. I'm proud of you. That was great. And we'll get into more of that. There'll be plenty of the dad jokes over the course of the next couple of weeks. That one was brutal. But listen, I expect nothing less from you at this stage. And you're right. That it was an offensive fireworks show today. Although I will say, one more note on the insider text line here, but I will say it wasn't so much the offense like making big plays and beating the defense. I almost felt like a lot of it was the defense beating itself today, which is kind of surprising. You'd expect to start training camp and have the defense be ahead of the offense, but it felt like from a communication perspective, it was the offense that felt like they were a little bit more ahead of the defense. Last note on the insider text line, like I mentioned, we got a text before we went live here from one of our insiders. His name's Mike. These updates are great. I would honestly rather spend the $4 a month for the insider text line to get these updates than spend my whole day driving to and sitting through training camp practice. So we're doing a service because we know, listen, most Bills fans would want to be here, want to be watching practice, limited amount of tickets. But if you can't be here, we try to do our best to put you here. And that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, really excited to talk about it. And, you said it well. Usually at training camp, it's the defense that takes the lead early on in terms of winning those early battles. But from a communication standpoint, there is some differences there on the back end, especially no Jordan Poyer, no Micah Hyde, new safety regime. I know that Taylor Rapp has been here for a year. Damar Hamlin's been here before. But it's a lot different when you go from a back end where the safeties have been together for multiple years to what it is now. So, not shocking that the defense had some early struggles, but generally speaking, like you said, the defense wins those early days, but the offense came out firing today.
Yeah, and I think if I were to tell you or to ask any average Bills fan, like, what would the end of the first day headlines, what would they be that would get you in a really excited mood about the season? And I think today delivered what exactly that would have been. Dalton Kincaid, Keon, Coleman making highlight real plays. I mean, the Bills put it out on their website. You can actually go watch those plays right now. We're not able to film during the team portion, but sometimes the team puts out highlights. And the one that we have to start with is Dalton Kincaid, who I felt like pound for pound was the best player on the field today throughout the course of practice. I mean, catch after catch, touchdown after touchdown as they worked in the red zone period. The one that really stole the show was a play where he beat his early coverage, got to the back of the end zone, and Josh Allen just trusted him. He put the ball up really high. He went up on an escalator all the way to the top floor and was able to make the catch, come down with the ball, get both feet inbounds, working against Taylor Rapp, who I thought Taylor Rapp kind of had a tough day today. We'll see how he kind of bounces back as that, premier safety now in that room. He was back there for the entirety of the day with our dark horse, Damar Hamlin, first team reps throughout the day. He made what I thought was the best play of the day from a defensive back, a pass breakup on Josh Allen at one point, but just communication breakdowns in the back end. And then you got a guy like Dalton Kincaid who goes up and makes a huge play like that. Had a touchdown over the middle of the field, like right near the goal line. He had a touchdown out to the right. So consistently making big time plays today, which I think is huge to see with Allen and Kincaid getting that chemistry started on the right foot.
Yeah, not re-signing Gabe Davis, trading away Stephon Diggs. I thought that really spoke volumes about what the Bills intended to do this season in terms of Dalton Kincaid's usage. And you saw the way that he performed as a rookie, coming on, setting records in terms of his performance in year one with the receptions and the receiving yards. The touchdowns were a little bit lower, but you could see late in the season, this was a guy that could be a focal point for this team. You can build an offense around a Dalton Kincaid, and that seems like perhaps that is the plan that the Bills are going with. And the wide receivers will get their fair share of targets, and we'll talk about them soon enough. But Kincaid catches just about everything that's in his vicinity. He has sure hands. He can go up. He can climb the ladder, as you said. He can get down on the ground and make those sliding and impressive grabs as well. He does a little bit of everything. The route running is crisp. He's able to create separation. He is a matchup nightmare in terms of who do you put on him, because he can outmuscle, cornerbacks and safeties, and he's faster than linebackers. So to see them get on the same page here on day one, multiple touchdowns, as you said, catching everything and anything thrown his way, you can't ask for a better start for Dalton Kincaid.
And I want to move over to Coleman, who I thought made the other one. Big play of the day. There was a bunch of big plays there. I thought a lot of offensive players turned in great performances. We're going to kind of run through all of those. Some line stuff too, but I don't want to go too deep into the line stuff yet because the pads aren't on. But a couple of observations that I think are worth diving into here. Nikki G over on YouTube asks, "Is Mike Edwards still injured at safety?" No, he's not. He'll actually be somebody we talk about in a minute. He worked on the second team today with Cole Bishop. We'll talk a little bit about that in a few minutes. But on Coleman, it's like you wait for, first of all, just my perception of the relationship between Coleman and the fan base. Like, he is, to me, outside of Josh Allen, maybe the number 2 guy in terms of popularity, which had you told me that when the Bills drafted him a couple months ago, before we got a chance to know him and his star has kind of risen, NFL.com, sharing all these different features, or I think it was NFL on CBS, NFL sharing something from him a couple weeks ago in the dead of the offseason. I mean, this is a guy that's gaining in popularity, and, Bills fans they've fallen in love with Keon Coleman a little bit, and he's got a flair for the spectacular. I sent one of the individual drills out to the insiders a few minutes ago, and in it you can hear the roar of the crowd when he makes the catch. He translated that into, or kept that going into the team portion, makes an unbelievable catch on the sideline, kind of contorted his body, grabbed the ball. It was a bullet from Josh Allen. And as he came down, it appeared that he got his 2 feet in, but the referee that was on the line called it an incomplete pass, like definitively incomplete pass. Well, you could see it on the video replay that the Bills put out. He got both feet in, kept control of the ball. And then actually there's a photographer down there that was taking pictures for the Bills, showed a couple reporters one of the stills, and you can actually see the ball underneath his hands staying in bounds. It was just a special play. And I think we're in store for a lot of those this season from Keon Coleman. I don't know about his role necessarily week to week, being a consistent part of the offense, like, 70, 80, 100 targets. I don't want to get into that kind of projection because it could change week to week. But I do think he has this flair for the dramatic, this ability to deliver in big moments. And I think that's what Bills fans are most excited about.
And shout out to the Bills social media team, because they even added the photo of him getting both feet in, catching the ball. So not just the video, but the photo is up now on social media platforms as well. And, listen, I've been telling the insiders in our positional previews, I don't know exactly how much he's going to be involved overall in this offense. Like you said, target share, but if there's one area where I think he'll be heavily involved, it's in the red zone, Matt, with that size, with that physicality, with the sure hands. That just seems like a way for him to be an immediate impact player with multiple touchdowns and targets this season. And, in that video portion of the highlight, you can see him having his jersey tugged on. And for some, that could take away from your concentration. It could prevent you from making a catch on a play like that, but it didn't. And that is going to be his bread and butter, especially early on. Like you call it the flair for the dramatic, making those big time catches. That's how I think he's going to be implemented, at least early on, while maybe you have a larger role for Kincaid and James Cook, Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir, and you ease him into the overall offense. But when you get down inside the 20, that's also going to be an opportunity for Keon Coleman to really make his mark on this Bills team as a rookie.
Thank you so much for watching. We're getting the numbers up there in the first training camp episode, mid-afternoon here at St. John Fisher University. Hit that like button if you're watching on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel as well. James says that he just joined the insider text line so that he could be, as one of the orange shirt people who isn't near the field, know what is going on out there. So cheers to you, James. Thank you so much for joining. And then we got Adam here.
Sorry, I'm clicking it while you're clicking it.
We were both clicking it. Hey, everyone, I joined the text line for training camp, and let me tell you, worth it. Get on it if you aren't already. 716-528-6727 or go to joinsubtext.com/shoutbuffalobills. 2-week free trial. You can check it out during training camp. But, man, we go 7 days a week, 365. The insider text line has become the one of the really big pieces of our coverage, Ryan. We really enjoy it. And the text line is brought to you by Carrie C. Beyer, attorney with the law offices of Francis M. Litro, located at 237 Main Street in Buffalo, New York. If you or someone you know is seriously injured, give them a call, 716-852-1234, or check out litrolaw.com. Where do you want to go next, buddy?
Well, you know what? Let's talk about a few of the defensive standouts. You mentioned a rookie who had a nice play today. Also, shout out Caitlin for loving the fireworks joke. I always said one Parrino had a really good sense of humor. I just never wanted to name which one, but it's become pretty apparent.
All right. I'm not surprised. Caitlin is a sucker for the dad joke, but that's okay. Anyway, here we go. Let's get back on track here. Enough of the dad jokes, Ryan. Stop planning for the next one. I know you're already kind of like, go rummaging through, your brain for the next great dad joke, but I don't know if we're there yet. You said you want to go to a rookie defensive player?
That stood out. Made a nice splash play today.
Ooh, yes. It was on the third team, so don't get too excited. Absolutely. Pads aren't on yet. But, man, I've been really talking up my excitement to really dive into watching Dwayne Carter, because the more that you hear about this kid from the college level, maybe last year at Duke was the reason that he fell to the third round. Like, I was listening to a podcast recently, draft podcast, where had Carter been eligible to come out in the draft 2 years ago after his, I believe it was his sophomore or his junior season at Duke, he would have been potentially a first round pick. It was this last season where maybe the tape wasn't as strong, but the really good football is still in there. So, okay, if you can unlock a potential beast in the inside and what he's going to bring from that three technique behind Ed Oliver, sign me up. I think that's going to be something that the Bills really need to add to their defense, working on the third team, going up against Keaton Bills, undrafted free agent. I know there's a lot of juice around him as maybe like a guy that can make a run at a roster spot or maybe a priority practice squad candidate. But on this play, Dwayne Carter showed why he was a third-round draft pick and Keaton Bills was a UDFA. I mean, he smoked him pretty good. Cedric Van Pran Granger, who worked predominantly, or only, I should say, at center today, he was in the region. But I put the pressure given up in the sack on Bills. He gets right through there, does Dwayne Carter, lands at Shane Buechele, who I thought, for all things being considered, a couple bad throws here and there, but I thought Shane Buechele, Mitch Trubisky, all the quarterbacks really played well today. So I think, having that happen and then having Carter have a splash play like that, now I'm sitting here looking at this over the next couple of days is like, all right, I'm on Dwayne Carter watch. When is he going to pop up to the second team? Is there a chance once they get the pads on where they want to see what he looks like working against that interior of Connor McGovern, David Edwards, and Osiris Torrance? Because that's when I think if he has a splash play in that setting, that's when you can start really getting excited about it.
Yeah, listen, you just read my mind. It was on the third team, but if he makes another splash play, that's when you get elevated and you get reps with the second team. And if you can make a play here and there, that's when you might get worked in with the starters as well. Unless there's no path for him to get a starting job this year minus an injury and, knock on wood for that not to happen. but he can still be a big part of this defensive tackle rotation. And the fact that there were analysts that said he could have been a first-round pick earlier in his tenure in Duke, that could have been maybe who he was playing next to, the overall D-line or defense as a whole. He's going to be entering a Bills defense that has some really talented players next to him on the D-line. Obviously, the linebacker position, arguably the best in the league. And the outside cornerbacks, too, there's a lot to love there about the starting unit and Taron Johnson at nickel. So he's going to be adding his talent to an already deep defensive roster. Maybe he can come in those situational moments and make his stamp on it as well. We know the type of leader he is off the field and on the field, being a multiple-time captain, being named Mr. Duke. You know that this is someone that, in terms of his personality, DNA, is a perfect fit for the Bills.
AK Cash asked who was getting the reps at left guard with the ones. It was only David Edwards. I mean, the door is not super wide open for that to become a competition at this point. I mean, it feels like that offensive line is set. And I remember when the Bills moved on from Mitch Morse, one of the first reports that came out was that the plan was for McGovern at center and Edwards at left guard. And I don't see the Bills really shifting too much. Depending on how the injuries work out, maybe Van Pran-Granger makes a ton of noise. But again, he was at center today. We'll see how much, if at all, they work him at guard. The one thing of note, though, I saw two different combinations on the second team for the offensive line. I saw first up, it was Will Clapp at center on the second team, Alec Anderson at left guard. There was somebody else at right guard, and then Lyle Collins out at right tackle. Later in practice, they shifted things around a little bit. Lyle Collins went inside to left guard, which to me, that's something interesting. If he's getting some second team reps at left guard, if he makes a little bit of noise in there, maybe he can be somebody that pushes Edwards a little bit. But I see for Van Pran-Granger, for him starting on the third team, quite a huge mountain to climb to get into the mix, especially if he's not on day one even working in at guard. Maybe he's not ready for that yet. So we'll see how that ultimately plays out. But we know Alec Anderson has the versatility to play all three of those interior spots and even the tackle spots if you need them. I thought Tylen Grable being out at left tackle at one point with the second team late in practice, that was something interesting of note.
So a few things here. One, you want to give the offensive line time to gel. So to your first point, there might not be a window of opportunity minus really bad play for the Bills to shift off of this starting unit. And I agree with that. I think that's the right call. Osiris Torrance, it didn't take him long to get those first team reps 1 year ago, and they stuck with it. And he played well throughout the regular season. And, you know, a lot of that could go back, Matt, to training camp and the valuable reps that he got there. David Edwards is a guy that's started in this league. He has a lot of time under Aaron Cromer. He played some valuable reps last year as that extra lineman when the Bills needed him. So I think having him start out here, seeing what this whole thing looks like from left tackle to right tackle, that's the right way to do it. There really isn't necessarily an open competition there. There isn't someone that could push him. Lyle Collins, however, being able to play tackle and guard, he has that versatility. He's done it already in his career in Dallas. That's going to help his chances, at least in terms of a roster spot. Someone that I consider to be a bubble player due to his age, due to his injuries. If he can prove to be a player at both spots, it'll be hard to knock him off of this roster at the end of August, early September, when they make those final decisions. So at worst, Collins can be a valuable depth piece, someone that can come in and contribute in multiple spots if you needed him in a pinch. He might end up performing in one spot better than the other. That's very common, but you love the versatility that the Bills have here on that second line as well, or that second unit, because of the different spots where guys can play.
If David Edwards ends up being locked in at left guard, Scott Webster asks, what do you do about the new reporting is eligible jumbo tight end that they obviously put Edwards in at that role last season? I mean, I think that there's a couple different options that they can go with depending on, you know, how nimble Lyle Collins can be. I don't know if he's necessarily a fit for that spot, but I definitely think they would give him a look at some point. I think it could probably be Ryan Vandermark. I mean, if you think about his size and his ability to kind of maybe get out in space, the only thing that would hold that up is if you're the Bills, you want to make sure you keep him healthy in case one of your tackles goes down. He's your number one depth tackle at this stage.
Sure. Could be Alec Anderson too, in terms of the maneuverability and the size factor of it. So he's someone that can factor in. The Bills might give some different guys chances there at the jump, in those jumbo packages. But you obviously don't want to just kind of keep Edwards around in that spot if you feel like he's a starting quality guard, which obviously the Bills think he is.
All right, let's get on to another couple of observations that will be tied in with a little bit of a larger conversation around Cole Bishop and two big touchdowns for two wide receivers that are going to have a memorable training camp. And it's going to have to extend into the preseason. That's Tyrell Shavers and Justin Shorter. And I think both of them made quite a nice first statement today. Both of them catching touchdown passes, one from Trubisky to Shavers. It was with Edwards and Bishop in coverage. However it ended up working out, Shavers got away from whatever that was happening early in the route, made a really nice catch, made Mitch Trubisky look really good. The second was a couple plays later, Justin Shorter from Shane Buechele, who I got to be honest with you, Buechele had a little zip on that ball today. Like he had a couple of throws and a couple to the backs that I want to bring up later in the show that were really impressive. Shorter makes a really nice catch. And as soon as he makes it, it's almost like we talked about it being like a little bit of a disappointing spring. It seems like he's been hard at work. He gets up, he takes the ball immediately, and he absolutely slings it like 40 or 50 yards into like where the fans stand outside the fence there, up until like the trees and that big hill in the far side of the end zone. Dude, like he's got a pretty good arm. Obviously he's a super athlete, but a great spot for both of those guys. Before we get to Bishop, your thoughts on those two guys making big plays today?
Yeah, it sounds like some pent-up emotion there for Justin Shorter. Like you said, maybe the rookie season didn't go as planned. The Bills kind of gave him that redshirt season. They did designate him to return late in the year, but it never actually happened. So he puts in the work in the offseason, comes in, touchdown on the first day. It has to feel pretty good. And, it seems like celebrating the touchdowns was a common theme today. So for him to do that probably felt pretty good. And it's a building block. Same with Tyrell Shavers. These are building block moments. And we've said for the last few weeks now, these are two guys that might be right now on the outside looking in on this roster, depending on how many receivers the team carries. They need to have a strong camp from day one to the finish line, show up in the preseason. So you can check the box for both of them on day one, making big time grabs, scoring touchdowns. Now, out of the two of them, who continues this, or do they both continue it? And then it puts some pressure on Chase Claypool, who exited early with a minor injury, it appears. So, this is great because competition is what you want at camp. I would have hated it, Matt, if we would have gone through these, 2+ weeks of training camp practices and said, oh, no, just Chase Claypool's job, definitive, or, there's no chance for these guys. This is what I want. I want these storylines. Who's going to show out? Who's going to show up and take advantage of these reps on both sides of the ball? And right now, one UDFA from last year in Shavers and a late round pick in Shorter, at least on day one, have made a memorable play.
Speaking of a play that kind of stood out today, like there was one moment I actually asked Sean McDermott about Cole Bishop before practice when he did his morning press conference. And I said, what is a guy like him? There's been so much made of him making the transition from a different style of defense at Utah to what is happening with this defense now under McDermott and Babich. What does he have to do to kind of separate himself or at least even get into the mix at one of those starting spots? And, McDermott kind of went on a little bit about being available. Like, I think that's like an easy crutch to use there in that spot, because it's like, of course you got to be out there to be able to, be in a position battle. But then he kind of went into, mastering the defense. And then he almost kind of maybe showed the Bills' hand a little bit. And then he said, like, maybe eventually it just ends up being like where you use them in a package. And the first thing I think of is what we talked about all off season. And that is, the dime package, where you can kind of utilize his ability to get downhill as a blitzer as well. That's something that I think it's a little bit easier not having to know all of the pieces of the defense, because listen, in this defense, no matter who's back there, they're going to have to communicate at a high level. And at one point in practice today, I bring all that up because McDermott had to stop practice. He walked over to Bishop. He basically showed him an error that he made in a pre-snap communication. It looked like it was with Balin Spector, and the Bills put a lot on the plate of their safeties. And it got to the point over the years that Poyer and Hyde were so interchangeable, and everybody on the defense out there was so dependent on their ability to communicate effectively. Replacing that is, to me, the biggest challenge, and it's why a guy like Bishop has an uphill climb. And it's also why we see Damar Hamlin on the first day of camp out there with Taylor Rapp, who played in this defense last season, and Mike Edwards, while he's been on 2 Super Bowl teams, is a veteran in the league. Yeah. Damar Hamlin has way more snaps in this defense.
Yeah, Cole Bishop is as talented as can be. He is a complete safety. You can play him in multiple spots, but this might take time. Like you said, different type of system. This is a rookie. It's a very complex defense, and Bills fans have been very lucky since the McDermott era to be able to watch Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer almost play what felt like almost every snap. And I know they both had some injuries here and there that they missed some time over the course of their careers. But for most of it, they were together. And Micah Hyde came over to Buffalo with starting experience, knowledge of the NFL game, the speed of the game. I remember Aaron Rodgers being very upset, in fact, when the Bills signed Micah Hyde and they didn't come back to Green Bay at that point in time. Jordan Poyer didn't have as much starting experience. He had a bad injury in Cleveland before he joined the Bills, but he had some experience in the NFL, playing time in the NFL. Now you're going to some guys that, Taylor Rapp has some starting experience, has obviously overall experience in this league. Mike Edwards has been more of a backup role. Damar Hamlin has multiple years in this system that works in his favor. And then you have Cole Bishop, who comes from a system that doesn't necessarily – I don't want to make this sound like the whole Kyer Elam comparisons all over again to how he played man versus zone. But the system in Utah wasn't necessarily a perfect fit or match for what the Bills do. So it's going to take some time. Bishop is a super athlete, though. It should translate over at the safety position. Start him out slow if you need to, though. Like you said, Matt, let him blitz. Let him kind of hover around on a play, maybe take the underneath routes, try to take something away from the first read of a quarterback. Let him play to his strengths early on. And as the season progresses, he's going to get more and more comfortable with the terminology, with the scheme, with playing with confidence, the communication aspect of it. But those are all things that, Sean McDermott's going to check the boxes, so to speak, when making those final decisions on who starts at safety.
Over 1,500 people watching live right now across all the platforms. Hit that like button on YouTube for the video. Subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you so much. I mean, this is our favorite time of year, Ryan. Every time we get a chance to do these post-practice reports, I feel like it connects us with our fans in a whole new way. All right, where do you want to go next?
You know what? Next, let's go back a little bit. I want to ask you a little bit about the return jobs here a little bit. And it wasn't very surprising. It seems like it was the special teams unit. There were some backup and low-end running backs back there. You had some wide receivers that are fighting for roster spots. Seeing the drills, though, in terms of the new kickoff rule, no one can move. What were your initial thoughts today in that area? Anything to...
Yeah, I think somebody made a really good point. I can't remember who I was talking to on the sideline. I'd love to give them. Oh, I think it was Andy Young, actually. Give a shout out to him over at Spectrum Sports. There's their new Buffalo Bills beat reporter replacing our buddy John Scott, who's now at Channel 2. He made the observation that, a guy like Darrington Evans back there makes a lot of sense because you have such a smaller amount of space to operate that I feel like running backs might have the advantage in the fact that the defense is going to get on you so quick. They're used to being that chaos around the line of scrimmage. Maybe a guy like Evans, who's returned kicks already. I can't remember. Was it last season? Did he return a kick for a touchdown? Or was that a run for a touchdown?
I felt like it was a run in the preseason.
It was a run. But I think that skill set is the same kind of thing that you use in the kick return. The other guy that I thought was interesting, KJ Hamler, guy that's done it before. That's a fringe roster guy that, I'm going to be watching in the preseason. And when he gets his opportunities, we've all been talking about Devontae, I'm blanking, Daquan Hardy in that spot. but that maybe could be a way that Hamler ekes his way onto the roster to add a little bit more value. You mentioned Chase Claypool. I did want to add, looked like he tweaked like his knee, something on his leg today on a route. He kind of limped off. He had it looked at for a moment. I shared video in the insider text line of him after practice, and it looked like he was moving around on it okay. So if you're the Bills, you're really fingers crossed that he's able to go tomorrow, and it was maybe just a little bit of something sore.
Right. Yeah. Something to monitor there because, again, I have him at least. I don't want to speak for you. Penciling is that wide receiver 6, but I noted that he's got to still earn that job at camp. And any time missed or any, significant time missed would hinder him in his chances. So did get up, walk off by all reports and indications. Hopefully something minor where he'll be back out there tomorrow. Matt, anything in the kicking game? Jack in the chat here wants to know who is holding kicks today.
Nothing in the kicking game today.
Yeah, not a surprise there early on. Something that one of these days that it might be a point of emphasis, but early on, no surprise there, Jack. Matt, anything you want to go to next?
Yeah, I want to talk about this running back group because there was a couple of, first of all, like they all participated and got into the party. I mentioned, I think it was Pops Mafia, our buddy in the comments here, who was interviewed by Channel 4 today and the Bills website. Big day at training camp for Harold. Shout out to you, buddy. And I think he mentioned it a little bit earlier, just the vibe around the team. Like it seems like everybody's having so much fun. And, Sean talked a little bit about that before practice today. And then you get out on the field and you see Josh Allen take the ball after Ty Johnson touchdown and bounce it off of Connor McGovern's head. Helmet, bounces up, goes high into the air, and then Ty Johnson grabs it and spikes it down. So coordinated celebrations. And Josh Allen talked about that a little bit. And that's actually an initiative started by Joe Brady. He wants to make it so that when you're in the end zone, even though in the red zone period, you're going to see a lot of touchdowns, you appreciate that and you celebrate that. And they're trying to make that a point of emphasis. They want to score a lot of points this season. And I thought the running backs across the board from, obviously James Cook is a guy that, Ty Johnson, them making plays isn't surprising. I thought Frank Gore made a catch today that was like, okay, maybe I had it wrong on him from the spring. I was a little bit down on his hands. Bouchel laced a bullet to the outside, and he had to go out and kind of stick his hand out there and grab it, and he was able to do that. Ray Davis had a play where I thought he showed his route running ability really quick in and out of his breaks, and that's the area of his game that scouts talked about loving. Maybe an underappreciated part of Ray Davis's game. So to me, that's the thing that could push Davis into the mix, getting him some first team reps and over the course of training camp. And I want to see that for some of these rookies.
Yeah, first of all, and I agree with Pops exactly. Or fun is good. It is good to have fun. Scoring touchdowns in this league is not easy. So I agree with Joe Brady and his assessment. Celebrate it. It'll fire up the defense a little bit too, because then when they make a play, they're probably going to be just as amped up on that side of the ball. So I love this. I love that on day one of the camp, you saw all these celebrations and some of them more detailed than others than just spiking the ball and things like that. But in terms of this running back room, Ray Davis was known for his great hands coming into this draft. We've talked about his size. I've talked about his blocking ability. Making plays like that will help him make a case potentially to push for that running back number 2 job. We know Ty Johnson can catch the ball well based on what we saw from him last season in Buffalo. And Frank Gore Jr., good for him to make a play like that. He needs days like this. He needs plays like that. He was a realist. He said sometime in the spring that he knows that, making some plays at training camp, contributing on special teams, that might be his path to a roster spot as a rookie, if there is a path. So for him to come out too, it's nice to see the backs involved as well, heavily involved on day one, making plays, scoring touchdowns. You like this group from top to bottom. The season that James Cook had 1 year ago, being, among the best in the league in total yardage. So a great day one for the backs as well.
Paul Whitebread asked first impressions of Javon Solomon. To be honest with you, I didn't really notice him. That's not necessarily a knock against him. I thought the offensive line across all 3 teams played really well today. I thought Von Miller I didn't notice Solomon. I'll be looking a little bit more closely when the pads go on, but even tomorrow, as we progress through the week, I'll try to, move around to different position groups and spend a little bit of extra time specifically watching them. We'll have the one-on-ones too that start to kind of come when the pads come on. Those will be really interesting to break down. A lot of new pieces in there too. Like you mentioned, a guy like Javon Solomon. I mean, when he gets a chance to go up against Deion Dawkins and Spencer Brown, iron sharpens iron, as they say. I think that'll be interesting to watch. Von Miller today, I liked his first step. I thought he looked really, really quick. I thought he looked like he was firing well off the line. Problem is, he's going up against borderline all pro on one side and a Pro Bowl hopeful and Spencer Brown on the other side. And I just didn't think there was a lot of success. There was a couple blown down plays, but for the most part, Carter's was the only like legitimate sack that I really observed throughout the. And they always blow the whistle because they don't want anybody getting too close to the quarterback. But a couple of players were moving well. It's hard to really dive into the line play when the pads aren't on yet, though. So I don't want to take too much away from that part of the play. I got some stuff to talk about on the cornerbacks. We'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, so Von Miller, the brace isn't on. He showed some speed and some juice in the spring. That's what you hope he brings over. And when the pads go on is when the evaluations will really matter there, Matt, with Miller, with Solomon, with this whole pass rush regime, Epinesa, Rousseau as well. But yeah, let's hear your thoughts on the cornerback play today.
So it was interesting that the Bills were kind of rotating opposite Rasul Douglas. You had Christian Benford, who obviously was out there. I thought he had a really feisty day. He had a great rep against Keon Coleman where he helped force an incompletion. Didn't get a pass breakup, but his coverage was just, what you expect, what we've come to know from Christian Benford. At one point in practice, he went up against Chase Claypool, and they really got into it. I mean, they were, at the end of the play was blown dead before the throw. The quarterback threw it to Claypool. Claypool got up and kind of like flicked it towards Benford, who did not take too kindly to that. He took it and threw it right back at Claypool as he was walking away. The next play, those two guys went back and forth a little bit, and to the point where it got a little physical at the end, and Benford kind of drove him into the ground a little bit, or maybe he slipped. I couldn't really see. It was on the far side of the field. But whatever happened, as soon as they kind of popped up, Benford was immediately in Claypool's helmet chirping at him. And I was talking to somebody on the sideline. I'm like, out of everybody that like on the Bills team, there's a lot of tough guys, but like Benford is sneaky in the mix for guys I wouldn't want to like chirp back and forth with. Like I wouldn't want to, get physical with. He's got that kind of demeanor, that soft-spoken nature where he just, I don't know, I wouldn't mess with him. But as he was, they were kind of chirping at each other. Claypool didn't seem like he was saying much. He was just kind of pointing at the other sideline, like, all right, walk over there. We're going to end this right here. But those are the kinds of early camp battles that you want to see. You want to see Chase Claypool get tested by the best the Bills have to offer. Elam, little bit handsy, something that we're going to continue to watch throughout the, training camp. Jamarcus Ingram with a lot of run as well. And I asked Brandon Beane after practice, and Pops, we'll get to Matt Milano here in a moment. I asked Brandon Beane about this after practice. I was like, was this deliberate? Like coming into training camp and in the preseason without a real veteran depth piece. And, he leaned into Douglas as being that guy, but and maybe he misunderstood my question, but I more meant like a depth guy that like isn't in one of the starting spots, because right. Douglas is very hyper focused on, being cornerback one. Like I feel like he fills kind of the Tre'Davious White role as like your top cornerback. He's in kind of his own bucket. I'm talking about a veteran that's going to push the young guys. Like right now, Kyer Elam and Jamarcus Ingram, they're competing against each other, and their spots are very safe. Now at the end, he did reveal he is not shying away from adding a veteran cornerback if an opportunity arises or they feel like they need to add one. But I thought it was interesting that, they're going to kind of cycle these guys through, give them all looks. That is it's setting up at least day one, Ryan. Like this is a position battle at CB2.
Yeah. So let me start with Christian Benford. This guy has to have a chip on his shoulder from, playing at Villanova and where he was drafted. He probably felt like he was drafted too late in the draft class, and he's come in and he beats out a first-round pick early on in his career for a starting job. And he's just gotten better every season. And in my head, I wouldn't be surprised if he thinks at the end of this year, there are going to be people saying that he should be, that he is the true number one on this team over Russell Douglas, who is a great player in his own right. So I like the chippiness. I like the attitude. You're going to see a few fights at every training camp this summer, some pushing and shoving, some physicality. That's all welcome because that just tells you how much it means to these guys. So I'm all in on a Christian Benford to even elevate his game to another level here this season with Russell Douglas on the outside. But yeah, the depth and the issues at depth have been my number one concern. I've told you this when we had our show at 2-9s recently. I almost went with cornerback position as my most concern, but I stopped myself because of the starting unit. The depth there is a huge question mark. And you said it, handsy with Kyrie Elam. That has been his biggest issue in Buffalo since day one. Overly physical sometimes, drawing flags. Sean McDermott doesn't tolerate that. It puts the defense in a bad spot. It gives up free yardage, free downs to the opposing team. So, like you said, it's something we have to watch throughout camp. I hope he can get that under control because the talent's there. He checks a lot of boxes from the size, the speed, everything that you want in a cornerback, but he needs to be able to play tough football without being overly handsy because that will bite him in the end. Jamarcus Ingram, I've been impressed with him when he has played. It's just been sporadic, Matt, and he hasn't had to have his number called, minus the Dolphins game a few years back where everyone was going down with cramping and injuries, and he held his own. So it would be great if the storyline coming out of camp is Ingram's, elevates his play. He's that next Dane Jackson. He's that next guy that can come off the bench and play valuable reps for you. And but we'll see. There are guys on the market. There are guys that are going to get cut. There are some veterans at the end of the summer where maybe they have experience in Buffalo. They have experience where Brandon Beane wouldn't hesitate to add them to the mix and say that, they can be a backup, learn this system, learn this defense, the terminology. And then if an injury were to happen or they were needed in season, they could then step in. But starting the summer off with these younger players, letting them see, evaluating them in terms of what they can do, I'm all for that because that will help you make a decision as to whether or not you need a veteran like a Patrick Peterson or you want to add someone after cuts across the league to come in and compete for those veteran backup jobs.
I mentioned the insider text line, 716-528-6727. Sign up for that right now. I'll give you a little bit of a preview in about, maybe an hour or two. I'm going to send along a UDFA that really impressed me today. That's going to be an insider exclusive. This is somebody that, I talked a little bit about in the spring, but somebody that on day one of training camp, man, he looked impressive today. He's feisty. So get to the insider text line, 716-528-6727. Join subtext.com/shout Buffalo Bills. 2-week free trial, $3.99 a month after that. We'll get that for you. All right, let's close out this episode, Ryan. Matt Milano's back. We started training camp today, and Matt Milano is on the field. The Bills had full attendance. They had full participation outside of Tommy Doyle, who remains on the PUP list. And shout out to the dorm furniture. It's part of what makes this the charm of the show during training camp. Thank you, Pops. Matt Milano being out there, I didn't know. I thought we'd maybe get a hybrid, participating in some of maybe the 7-on-7, maybe some of the simulated stuff. But he was out there for the entirety of practice. And I would say the one play that stands out was probably one where he got cooked a little bit, and it was Dalton Kincaid, who was just absolutely explosive on a quick route, ran by him in coverage. Listen, there's some cobwebs there. There's some rust there. You're going to have to shake some of that off. And listen, there's plenty a linebacker that are going to lose against Dalton Kincaid this season. 100%. So it's no big tough thing there. But I think overall, just what it means to that defense, the juice that it brings to see Milano back out on the field, and the fact that he's practicing in full from the jump, right? I think that the pathway is clear to him being a big part of this thing in a couple of weeks when the Bills start the season.
Yeah, 100%. And if I'm Brandon Beane, if I'm Sean McDermott, Bobby Babich, I'm thrilled with the fact that he's out there day one as a full participant. I truly believe that they weren't holding anything back last season, even after the draft, where Brandon Beane, said it's something they had never experienced before. I don't think they knew where he was going to be come summertime, come training camp time. And to have him, clear everything that the doctor needed to see, have him out there in a full capacity, you have to feel really good about Milano. And like you said, this is a shaking the rust off period. The preseason will be a shaking the rust off period. You just want him to be ready for week one. And, Matt Milano eats, drinks, and sleeps football. So no doubt in my mind that he'll be ready. But they have to be so encouraged after the injury, not knowing the timeline on that, and to have him ready here on day one at St. John Fisher University.
He's truly one of one. I talked about him a couple weeks ago about just how dialed in he feels all the time. I mean, he was talking to a coach after practice, walking through the hysteria of Bills fans that were trying to get autographs. And it was almost just like he did not come out of that moment talking with his coach for even a moment. I think he might have given a wave at the end of the tunnel, but the dude is just locked in and he wants to get back to being, the guy that he was before the injury last season. And, he's a huge piece to what they do on defense and somebody that we're going to be watching on a daily basis here over the next couple of weeks. Anything else you want to hit before we get out of here?
Just a few things here in the chat. Michael Kless, thank you for becoming a new member on YouTube. Great to have you aboard, as well as everyone else in the comments. Jim in the comments, you will get a Matt and Ryan Buddies in Person show on Friday. You will get one on Sunday. We'll be at the stadium the week after that, and then the Sunday after that. So there's 4 on the horizon. Cannot wait. And Joe, when we talk with Alan here again, or late in training camp, we'll probably get a better feel for how they plan on utilizing Josh Allen in the preseason. Wouldn't expect much, though, in terms of playing time there.
I wouldn't be surprised if we saw like a series or two in the first preseason game and then a little over a quarter in the second preseason game.
Or second. Okay. Yeah.
Just because that would be a departure from recent years.
Right.
But there's a lot of new pieces here, and I think that they want to get reps.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is Joe Brady's system as well. You want reps there, reps with a new weapon. So, yeah, certainly makes sense.
Just about 2,000 watching across all platforms. Thank you so much for joining us. The party is just getting started. I will have my observations column up on the website within the hour and much more emptying of the notebook here. Emptying the notebook in the insider text line. That's coming later today. I have more videos to drop in there as well. And we're just getting started. This is just day one. Everybody's got to get dipping their toes in the water, reacclimating themselves to everything. This thing is going to pick up steam over the next couple of weeks. Speaking of the next couple of weeks, August 4th, a week from Sunday, we're going to be at Dorado on Park Avenue right here in Rochester. Our summer training camp spectacular live episode of Shout right after practice, 2 p.m. Come on out and hang out with us. Wing Nuts is coming. They're bringing all of the chicken wings. It's going to be an awesome time, Ryan. We can't wait for that final word.
Final word, Bills Mafia. Like Matt said a few times, join the insider text line. You won't be disappointed. Day one of camp is in the books, but there's still a lot more to go. 716-528-6727. Become an insider today.
Guy's got it. He's got dad jokes. He's got phone numbers. See you tomorrow, everybody. Get a great night of sleep. Head over to Syracuse.com, NewYorkUpstate.com for more coverage. We'll see you then. Take care, everybody.